Hey guys, today we have a special interview. Bruce Bookman Sensei has been my friend for a long time, and I knew him actually from the Aikido world before, and now you can see he's a Jujitsu black belt as well. Bruce, let's go back 10 years ago. I saw you at the Aiki Expo, which was an Aikido seminar. Right. You put on a great class on hip throws. It was the part that I remember the most from that. It was an awesome class. But actually, let's go back further. Tell us a little bit about your martial arts background.
Well, I started in Aikido as a 12-year-old. And I didn't know I was getting involved in Aikido. It was just the closest dojo to my house, the New York Aikikai with Yamada Sensei. And I was getting my butt kicked in school every day. And it was a time in New York where there was a lot of racial tension and there was busing. And
what do you mean by busing?
Well, they used to try to integrate the Afro-American students with white students. But what actually wound up happening was they would bus the white students to a building in a black neighborhood. And then they would bus the black kids to a building in a white neighborhood. And then everybody went back to their neighborhoods after school, and there was never really very much integration. But I, one way or another, remained in my neighborhood school where I was very rough there, and I was the only Caucasian kid in the entire school. So it was very hard, and I needed to do something. And I looked in the yellow pages, and I found the New York Aikikai. It was right down the block from my school. And I went there, and since joining at the New York Aikikai, I've never been in another fight. So I don't know, something changed. I certainly didn't feel like I learned a few Aikido moves and I was going to go in and be able to protect myself against the thugs at school, but something changed, and it was never had to worry about it again.
Do you think something changed inside of you, something that didn't invite altercations?
It could have been postural, and again, it wasn't really immediate. I was still running for a fair amount of the time, trying to find different exits out of the school. But I think over time, postural things, just dealing with people and learning a little more sophistication, that there's all kinds of people in the world. And everybody brings to their interactions whatever they've been around. It's just a little understanding goes a long ways in diffusing things. You know, if a person looks into your eyes and they see that there's a person there, and that can be enough to get you through a lot of hard situations.
I know you've had a long history in the martial arts training, not only in New York, but also in Japan, and now at your academy in Seattle.
Yes.
What do you think you've been in Aikido for so long, what has kept you in one art for so long?
That's a really good question, and it's a question that I've asked myself for many years. And it all boils down to I just love it. For me, it's beyond the martial art. It's a form of artistic expression. When I practice Aikido, I can really feel the energy moving through my body, and I get through blocks, and it's a beautiful way to interact with other people. There's the martial art aspect of it as well, but for me, honestly, it tends to be more on the back burner. Although in the recent decade, I've been giving a lot more emphasis to the martial aspect of it, even though it's not really where I live. It's not what I would like to do. I enjoy the classical art of Aikido, this type of movement, and just a connection with people. And the whole idea of no winners and no losers, but just a sort of a harmonious interaction. And in Aikido, we use a lot of very symbolic, classical type attacks that were really an extension of the samurai period. So it takes a bit of work to connect the dots into making it a practical self-defense. And that's exactly what I've endeavored to do over the years. So I just love it. That's really the answer. It's a meditation. It really is. And there's a type of interaction where if you can truly The thing with Aikido is that you get right on the center line and you expose your heart. You know, you become vulnerable. And at that moment, it's very disarming. And it's the same thing as I was dealing with at school. That type of sincerity, the attacker has to wait for a minute and go, what? I don't know where to put this guy right now, you know. And that's the moment where there's the opening for some kind of a resolution.
To put it in Japanese terms, are you talking about fudoshin, the immovable mind, when someone's going to attack you and you're just rock solid?
Not at all. Not at all. There has to be core strength. And yet there has to be the fluidity, and you need to be movable. If someone really insists on something, you create the void so that they can do what they'd like. They may not realize where it's going to lead them to. In a way, that's like Jujitsu, right? The art of suppleness. There has to be that same suppleness in Aikido as well.
Right. So you were involved in Aikido for a long time, as I was too, but of course you were longer. What did you find was something lacking, or what brought you to start something new in Jiu-Jitsu? Because that's pretty unusual for a guy high ranked in one art to put on a white belt and practice something new.
Well, honestly, I've always believed that if you're just interested in the martial aspect of an art, there's better ways to fight than to do Aikido. But the whole philosophy and the whole way that almost anybody can practice Aikido. There's room on the mat for anyone. And you get to work with all kinds of different people. Now, how did I get into Jiu-Jitsu? You know, I boxed for a while, and I did Taekwondo, and I did Judo, but I always hated it. I hated all of it, really, and I just did it because I felt that I should get a more rounded background. And I was teaching a seminar, Aikido seminar in San Luis Obispo. My friend Mary Tesaro and her husband, or friend at the time, who was also running the dojo, Tom Elliott, they gave me these Jiu-Jitsu tapes. It was the very first tapes that the Horian and Hoist Gracie put out. And I'm looking at these tapes, because people were always giving me videotapes to watch. And I'm like, oh God, must I watch another boring martial art videotape? And I liked Tom and Mary very much, so I didn't want to disappoint them. So I felt that I had to put at least one of these tapes in and watch it just a few minutes before going to bed. I had to keep my eyes open, just with my fingers like this. I was just ready to fall asleep. And then what I saw, I was so impressed by that I stayed up half the night watching all of those original Gracie tapes. And I got a hold of Tom in the morning, and I had to practice everything on him. And it was amazing. I saw this, and I could really imagine myself doing it. It just agreed with me. You know, there are many things that are martially effective, but you know, you look at them and you can't, I don't know about you, but I can't imagine myself doing certain things. You know, I can't imagine doing Kyokushinkai karate or you know, that kind of stuff. That's not in me, you know. But I looked at the Jiu-Jitsu, and I was so impressed with the ability of the Jiu-Jitsu guys to move in, close the distance, take the person down, and calmly put them to sleep unless they tap, and not really put a scratch on them. So, wow, that's amazing. So I said, I gotta learn this stuff. I just got to. And I was gonna go to the Gracie guys, to Horian and Hoist Gracie, to the academy down there. And a friend contacted me who was working with the Machado brothers. He said, why don't you come down here? I know the Machado brothers. And frankly, I was a little nervous about going down because, you know, with all the publicity and the big challenge. And I think Horian put out something once, I'm angry at all these martial art guys who claim to be this and that, you know, and I'm going, gee. And then I have a friend who's working with the Machado brothers. Why don't I go there, since I know somebody there? So I went down there and was delighted with the training, and I'd come back to Seattle and with some training, and I'd work with my students, and we'd go back and forth, and that went on for quite a while until finally there was a Jujitsu guy who came to Seattle, Marcelo Alonso, and I studied with him for 6 months until he went back to Brazil, and then there was one teacher after the other that would come in, and that's how I got involved with it. But most of my training has been on my own, trying to learn best I can, and working that way with my students, and I'd go through periods where I'd really intensify my training, and then I would just take it and work on it myself, and work constantly at seeing what the connection is between Aikido and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, if there is any.
Have you been successful in finding many connections?
Well, I'm starting to now. The whole thing with any encounter is about the pressure, putting pressure on and releasing the pressure. If we're here, if we're standing up, for example, and I manage to do an Aikido technique, and I'm doing Nikyo this way, and then from here, it can change. If you create a void, you're moving back, and then here, now I'm creating still the same amount of pressure, but we're really doing something that's kind of like, it feels to me, it has the same softness as Aikido. Then if you start to move, is this a good place in terms of, So from here, you start to move around. From here, you can, sort of work on your fluidity. And there's the same idea of taking a linear force and turning it into a circular direction, for example, and then regaining your posture and sort of surfing a little bit. And I began to see that there's really a lot of connection there, not to mention too the whole idea of the concept of Mawai. And this, I think, the Gracies approached almost in a classical way. Because the ideal in Aikido, the ideal Mawai, is this.
Right. So I have to take a step if I'm going to.
So from here, you can't do anything to me unless you get closer.
Right.
So the whole thing with Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is, at least the more vale tudo, they used to call it, right? If you move towards me, I have to move back.
Right.
If you move back, I need to move forward. But if you move forward, if I can find a place right in the middle, where you're almost mid-step, and I can come in and sort of throw a blanket over what you're doing, all I'm striving to find is some way of connecting. There's this safe place out here, this extremely dangerous place, and then this safe place. It's not really safe, but I like it in here better. Right? So the whole art is how to get through the dangerous zone, right? So all of the principles that are in just good Mawai in classical Japanese martial arts, whether it's Aikido or Kobudo, for example, and in this Vale Tudo or mixed martial arts, it's really the same concept. The thing is with the mixed martial artists, they're like the Roman gladiators. They get in there at very high risk to themselves, and they do things that are very skillful and that they train really hard at, and it's very dangerous. And we're working more on a conceptual level, up to the point of perhaps doing self-defense, which is a very different thing.
Right. And Bruce, this is something I've thought about for a while. The founder of Aikido, Morihei Ueshiba, was a guy who went around and trained with the best guys that he could find during his lifetime. He practiced swordsmanship and Jujitsu and ended up developing his own art. In modern times, traditional martial artists are not encouraged to go out and try different things. They're encouraged to stay in their system and work up the ranks. If O-Sensei, the founder of Aikido, was alive today, do you think he'd be practicing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
No, I don't. Well, that's the short answer. The long answer is, I think he did. I believe that O-sensei knew this grappling work that's on the ground. And as did, because he did Jujitsu, right? But it was mostly stand-up Jujitsu. But they used to teach the groundwork as well. But for public demonstrations and with new students, they were really always paranoid about people stealing their stuff. So they wouldn't teach what we commonly know, I believe, what we commonly know as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, they wouldn't teach it to just anybody. And it got so far, they tried to hide it so much that I think it went from one generation to another and slowly slipped out of the curriculum. To the point where, now you see this Kodan, what is it, there's a judo.
Kosen Judo.
Kosen Judo, yeah, where they actually do, it's very similar to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, amazing stuff.
Yeah.
And I think O-sensei knew that stuff. Would he have done it as a leading master of his discipline, to have the humility to come to a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu school and get down on the mats with folks? I don't know. I somehow doubt it. I mean, when asked if he'd done any Chinese martial arts, first of all, you couldn't even ask O-sensei that question. You know, it had to be somebody from his office or somebody, and they'd say, oh no, he never did this. God spoke to O-sensei and he did it, you know, unless there was a Japanese instructor. So, you know, that's a good question. You would think that the whole idea with Aikido is to develop humility, and that would be the case, but practically, honestly speaking, I don't know.
As a higher ranking guy in a different martial art than Jiu-Jitsu, what would you say to guys out there that might have their own successful schools, lots of students making a living, and they're intrigued with Jiu-Jitsu, but they're not ready to put on a white belt and lose in front of their paying students?
Well, first of all, don't do it in front of your students. You know, although I did, but you know, there's many ways. You have to give yourself, if you're an instructor, you have to create an environment where you can study Jiu-Jitsu and you can be relaxed. If you're worried about saving face and you're trying to study Jiu-Jitsu at the same time, it's impossible. So find the dojo somewhere out of the way. Go there and practice. You don't have to, advertise it to the world. Give yourself the chance to be a no-name nobody and wander into the dojo as a complete beginner and study. And then see what comes of it. How can you demonstrate or show anything to your students that you don't really know much about? And you know, a lot of folks don't necessarily want to be up on stage as they're going through every aspect of being a beginner. So I would say do that, and it all depends on the makeup of your students, what kind of relationship, what do they think of you anyway? Do they hold you up there as some kind of a god? Well, then you know you're going to lose half of them when they discover you're not a god. You know, do you have more of a natural rapport with them where you can do this kind of thing? And you know, you have to feel it out. It depends on your own personality. Yeah. And then you have to ask yourself, what do you want out of this? And are you getting it now with how you practice? And if not, then that helps too, because once you get your goal clarified, then you can start to do it. But then ultimately, it comes from your heart. When I see Jiu-Jitsu, I don't know why I like it. Like even what I do mostly now is the sport Jiu-Jitsu. And it's getting further and further away from the practical application all the time. So, but still, I love it. Mm-hmm. So that's what it boils down to.
All right. You know, I talk to students all the time who are a little bit older, and they usually have a string of complaints, you know, of injuries, and oftentimes they just attribute it to their age. You know, I'm over 40 or I'm over 50. Well, one of my instructors, Carlos Gracie Jr., is in his 50s. You're in your 50s as well, both still going strong. What do you say to the students that use age as an excuse of not to train?
You know, it depends on what's really going on with them. You know, and how serious are the problems. You just can't say, well, you know, everybody should practice. It's really, it depends on the individual. I've been kind of blessed. Up until just recently, I've had very few injuries. And I had a good long string with Jujitsu of about 20 years with not too many injuries. I could have made the excuse that I'm too old. And definitely, I don't do things like a 19-year-old anymore. I see these guys jumping around on the mat, and it's, all right. You know, but if you're using it as an excuse, get over it. That's what I think. Check in with yourself, see what you really can do. If you're starting Jiu-Jitsu as a 50-year-old, that's, you know, there are more challenges. I don't want to discourage anybody, but it's hard. You have to watch who you're practicing with. The worst thing for a beginner is another beginner. Because they don't know what they're doing. Their egos get involved. They start cranking on you. They jut one way or the other unexpectedly, and accidents happen, and it's just, it can be a catastrophe. So work with really good people. The really good people, usually there's fewer injuries because they're sure of themselves. They know what they're doing. They can help you. They can, you know, it's. So I would say, yeah, if you're using it as an excuse, get over it, because it's counterproductive to your life as well as the martial arts. And you know, always breathe life into things. You know, do things that help your ability. Even as you get old, you know, you can get into a psychological thing where you really make yourself decrepit, and it doesn't serve a good purpose.
Bruce, last question for today. Guys like you and I are on the mats a lot, training hard physical martial arts. Sometimes we need to think about the other side and how to relax our body and keep us in good fighting shape. What kind of things do you do to take care of your body? Do you do any yoga or Tai Chi or anything like that?
Well, I do yoga. My wife is a yoga instructor. She does Iyengar style yoga, and also my son Max runs a fitness gym in Austin, Texas, Max Fitness, and he's designed a program for me that is helpful. If you can find a fitness guy such as Max, it's really helpful, because if they have some insight and they can see you as an individual and design something especially for you, it's really helpful. All the young guys have fitness training, so as an older person, you have to, if the young guys have to do it, of course we have to do it, I would think. Yeah, I would say that. And you know, start slowly and gradually build up. Always have a really good sweat before you do anything. It's really a nice way to go. Yeah, I would say that.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. And Bruce, if people want to find out more about you, where can they contact you online?
Untitled.com. And we have a website there. You can see our Jiu-Jitsu classes as well as the Aikido classes, both for adults and children. And, yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much. Yeah, pleasure, Jake.
I hope you guys enjoyed the show today. I certainly enjoy creating it for you and having these guests come in. We certainly have plans to do a lot more, but I need to know that you like it as well. So if you enjoyed the show, please click the like button below. Please subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes, and leave a comment. Whether you liked it or hated it, let me know your comments. Thanks for watching.